Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take the latest sources and research and filter them down into the clearest, most compelling insights, tailor-made just for you. Today, we are diving into a concept that is actively reshaping one of the world's oldest asset classes, tokenized real estate.
It's a really critical area to dig into right now. And that's because this isn't just some, incremental tech update.
No, not at all.
It's a fundamental shift in the whole structure of asset ownership. We're talking about digitizing real-world assets, or RWAs, and our mission today is to unpack the most revolutionary part of this market fractional ownership.
That's exactly where the power lies. We want to help you understand the precise mechanics, the legal engineering, the blockchain architecture, and the profound opportunities this market unlocks.
And the challenges.
And the massive, often complex regulatory and governance hurdles that are still standing in the way of, global adoption. We're moving from the high-level idea to the nitty-gritty operational reality.
Precisely. And if we distill this down to a single idea for you, it's this. Tokenization lets you own a small, affordable piece of a massive, high-value asset.
Like a prime Manhattan skyscraper.
Exactly. Or a huge shopping mall. And you can do it without needing millions of dollars in capital. We're basically moving physical ownership into the digital age. And we need to show you exactly how that link is forged, what advantages it brings, and where the system is currently weakest.
Okay, let's do that. Let's unpack this by starting with the very foundation. How does tokenization actually make this idea of fractional ownership work?
So let's start with the basics. Fractional ownership as a concept is actually pretty simple.
It's not new.
Not at all. It's just an arrangement where multiple people own, defined proportionate portions of a single entire asset. We see this today in all sorts of things, from fractional ownership of private jets to common legal setups like a tenancy in common.
So if the idea itself isn't new, what makes this digital age version so revolutionary? Why do we even need the token?
The token introduces three things that are complete game changers: unprecedented granularity, instant transferability, and immutable verification.
Okay, break that down.
Sure. Traditionally, fractional ownership of, say, a commercial building might be held by 50 partners inside some complex limited partnership, or LP structure.
Right, and those shares are not easy to sell.
They're incredibly illiquid and very difficult to transfer. Tokenization changes the medium and, crucially, the scale.
So in this new model, we take that traditional idea and we place it onto a blockchain. Each fraction, instead of being just a line item on some dusty, inaccessible partnership ledger,
is represented by a digital token, and that's usually structured as a security token. This token then becomes the transparent, verifiable, and instantly tradable asset.
And you mentioned granularity. That's the key word.
It is. Because historically, dividing, let's say, a $100 million building into 50 shares means the minimum investment is $2 million. That's still institutional level money. Tokenization lets us completely shatter that barrier.
Okay, let's use the definitive example our sources relied on to make this calculation really concrete for you. We'll call it the skyscraper calculation. Suppose you have a massive trophy-grade asset, a skyscraper valued at exactly $100 million.
Right. So through tokenization, that asset gets digitally subdivided. That $100 million valuation can be legally and programmatically divided into, for example, 100 million individual tokens.
Which gives you a really clean, simple valuation.
Super simple. Each token is now worth precisely $1.
And that structural division, that simple math, changes everything for the individual investor. The entry price is no longer dictated by the building's total value, but by the minimum number of tokens you can buy.
So if you want 1,000 tokens, you need $1,000. If you want one, you just need a single dollar. That huge psychological barrier that comes with thinking about investing in a $100 million property, it just vanishes.
And that leads directly to the crucial operational detail that makes this so transformative. Unlike the shares in a traditional LP, these tokens are designed to be bought, sold, or traded instantly.
Yeah, on secondary marketplaces, often running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just like trading digital currencies or stocks on a major exchange.
And that's the deviation that really matters. I mean, selling a $2 million partnership stake in some real estate trust could take months.
Months of legal negotiations, broker fees, due diligence. It's a slog.
But selling $1,000 worth of a tokenized fractional share, that can happen in minutes or even seconds as long as there's a market for it. It completely revolutionizes the speed of capital movement within real estate.
But this whole system, this instant transfer, it only works because of the robust foundation it's built on.
The blockchain.
The blockchain. We rely on that distributed ledger technology because it ensures that ownership is immutably recorded.
Okay, so when we say immutably recorded, for you, the listener, who might be more familiar with traditional property titles, what is the actual technological difference? How does a blockchain make sure that $1 token is, indisputable?
Well, it really comes down to decentralized consensus in cryptography. A traditional title deed is centralized. It's held by a county clerk or some specific legal entity. A blockchain record, on the other hand, is replicated across thousands of computers all over the world.
So any attempt to fraudulently change the ownership record of that token would be spotted immediately.
Instantly. And it would be rejected by the network's consensus rules. So the record isn't just stored somewhere.
It's constantly being verified everywhere.
Exactly. It provides this transparent, cryptographically secured ledger that verifies, without any ambiguity, who owns which fraction, right down to the smallest piece. This technological certainty gets rid of a lot of the friction we've always dealt with in property transfers.
Things like counterparty risk or title confusion.
All of that, simply because the record itself becomes the single, non-disputable source of truth.
So the digital token isn't just a representation of your share. In a way, it is the verifiable legal and technical proof of your stake in that real-world asset.
That's the goal.
Okay, so if the first segment set up the mechanics, this next part really clarifies the impact on who can actually invest. This is all about breaking down the barrier to entry.
It is, and that barrier, as we've noted, was historically astronomical. Prime commercial assets, especially in global hubs like Midtown Manhattan or the City of London,
They were completely off limits.
exclusively the domain of institutional capital. We're talking pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, giant insurance companies. These properties were just financially inaccessible to almost all retail investors.
The capital you needed was in the millions, sometimes tens or hundreds of millions, and the investment timeline was usually a decade or more.
Right, and that meant that the very assets offering the greatest stability and the most robust returns were entirely reserved for the financial elite.
So now, let's look at the tokenized reality. Through a tokenization platform, an everyday investor, you, the listener, whether you're in Dallas or Dublin or Dubai, could potentially buy as little as, say, $500 worth of tokens.
And those tokens represent a fraction of that exact same high-value property. We've literally moved from financial exclusion to radical inclusion.
This democratization, it feels like the driving force behind the whole movement, both philosophically and financially.
It is. It allows the retail investor to completely bypass that massive financial barrier and get access to the same quality of real estate assets as the institutional giants.
Yep.
And that's critical. It gives them the ability to integrate high-performing stable assets into a standard retirement or savings portfolio.
Which was just impossible before.
Impossible.
But let's expand the scope here, beyond just skyscrapers. This concept should work across the entire spectrum of real-world assets. Our sources pointed specifically to commercial properties like a shopping mall.
A shopping mall is a fantastic case study because the revenue streams are so complex and continuous.
Right, it's not just a single rent check.
No, you've got base rent, you have percentage rents tied to how well the retailers are doing, you have common area maintenance fees, service charges. All these complex cash flows have to be accurately and promptly distributed back to potentially thousands of owners.
In the traditional model, that's an administrative nightmare. You're talking complex accounting, asset managers, long settlement times through bank transfers and trusts. It's a mess.
And this is where tokenization provides genuine, measurable operational efficiency. The asset itself, the shopping mall, is legally owned by something called a special purpose vehicle, or SPV.
A separate legal entity.
A separate legal entity. And that SPV's ownership is then reflected in the smart contract that controls the tokens. That smart contract, which lives on the blockchain, is pre-programmed with all the rules for how income gets distributed.
So when the property manager collects the rental income in fiat currency, dollars or euros, how does that money get translated into those instant automated payments the smart contract is supposed to deliver to the token holders?
That's where you need something called an oracle. An oracle is basically a digital bridge. It's a secure, reliable third-party service that connects the off-chain world.
Like the property management bank accounts.
Right. The accounts that confirm, say, $500,000 in rent has been collected. It connects that world to the on-chain smart contract.
The oracle feeds that verified data point to the smart contract.
And the smart contract immediately executes the payment instruction. It distributes the proportional share of income, maybe as stablecoins or other digital assets, representing that cash flow, to every single token holder's wallet.
Instantly and transparently.
And it bypasses the traditional banking delays completely.
That functionality, that is the real aha moment for you, the learner. It's not just that you can buy in with $500. It's that the entire complex business of being a landlord gets automated and made super efficient through programmable cash flow.
Absolutely. The strategic implication here is crystal clear. Tokenization allows for this granular investment in global properties that would otherwise be totally inaccessible if a prime industrial facility in Singapore gets tokenized.
An investor in Berlin can become a fractional owner with just a few clicks. The geographic barrier to getting high-quality assets just evaporates. It enables genuine international diversification without all the legal hassle and cost you'd normally face with cross-border investing.
It fundamentally connects what used to be distinct, siloed global real estate markets into a single global pool of liquidity and access.
Okay, so now we can synthesize all these market-moving effects into 4 clear, compelling pillars. Let's start by recapping Pillar 1, accessibility, but maybe we can add more depth on the portfolio implications.
So we've established that we're lowering the barrier to entry from millions down to maybe just hundreds of dollars. But the portfolio implication is so important. For the very first time, small-scale investors can integrate institutionally managed prime-grade real estate into a standard, liquid investment portfolio.
Which means they're getting access to assets that typically have a low correlation with public stock markets.
Exactly, providing superior risk mitigation and stability.
So it's about asset quality finally meeting asset affordability. Instead of sinking all your money into a single illiquid local rental property, which, requires maintenance, management time, and carries huge localized risk, you can now own a piece of a globally recognized, professionally managed asset.
And you can focus purely on the financial thesis of the investment, not on being a landlord.
Right. Which brings us to Pillar 2, liquidity. This is arguably the most transformative benefit for capital markets. Traditional real estate is just notoriously illiquid.
Selling a major asset can take months, sometimes even a year. The due diligence, the appraisal, the legal closing, it's an incredibly slow process.
And the seller often has to accept what's known as the illiquidity discount if they need to get their money out quickly.
Precisely. If you need to sell fast, you're pretty much forced to reduce your asking price significantly. The buyer knows they're taking on an illiquid asset that's going to tie up their capital for a long, long time. Our sources highlight that tokenization directly attacks this problem by making the fractional asset tradable 24/7 on the secondary market.
And when you remove that time friction, that need for a months-long closing process, you effectively remove the illiquidity discount.
That's the key financial insight. The instant tradability essentially unlocks value that was previously trapped by all that friction. By moving real estate trading closer to how equity markets operate in terms of ease and speed, these underlying assets can actually command a higher relative valuation.
Because they're more flexible?
They're more flexible and more responsive to capital needs. This is why institutions are so interested. They can extract value from their holdings almost instantly.
But I do have to push back on that a little. If we're making these fractional real estate holdings instantly tradable 24/7, doesn't that introduce a new kind of risk? Market volatility. I mean, real estate investors are generally looking for long-term stability and income, not the wild swings we see with speculative crypto assets. Are we just transforming stable real estate into a highly volatile digital asset?
That's a crucial question. And it really speaks to the necessary distinction between security tokens, which we're talking about here, and volatile utility tokens.
Right.
The goal of tokenizing real estate is not to introduce unnecessary speculation. The volatility of the token should, in theory, be tied very tightly to the volatility of the underlying asset and its projected income stream.
Meaning, unless the skyscraper suddenly loses all of its tenants, the token's value should remain fundamentally stable because it's backed by that real-world asset.
Correct. You have market makers providing liquidity, but the asset's intrinsic value acts as a fundamental anchor, a stabilizer. However, you are right to point out that the 24/7 trading mechanism does expose it to digital market dynamics. It could potentially attract a broader pool of capital that might have a shorter time horizon than a traditional real estate fund.
Which means you need robust regulation.
You need robust regulation to ensure transparency and stability. And we will definitely get to that.
Okay, that's a good segue to Pillar 3, diversification. The benefit here is clear, practical value for managing risk. Because the barrier to entry is so low and the liquidity is high, an investor can now spread capital across, well, literally multiple properties instead of tying all their funds to one single asset.
Traditionally, diversification for an individual might have meant buying a rental house in one suburb and maybe a small commercial property in another town. Tokenization allows for instant, sophisticated diversification across assets and across jurisdictions.
So you could imagine achieving true risk mitigation by allocating your capital to, say, a high-yield industrial park in Germany, a stable residential complex in Seattle, and a commercial office building in Singapore all at the same time.
And using the same relatively small pool of capital, you're diversifying geographically, you're diversifying across different economic cycles, and across varied real estate sectors, all within a single tokenized portfolio.
It allows an individual investor to build a portfolio with the kind of complexity and robustness that was previously only available to a massive institutional fund. It protects you from localized economic shocks or the specific failure of a single property or market.
Exactly.
Which brings us finally to Pillar 4, transparency. This is the blockchain's core value proposition at work, right? Providing those immutable ownership records.
Right. This transparency ensures there is absolutely no confusion about who owns which fractional shares, who holds them, and the entire history of those transactions. Every transaction is public, verifiable, and permanent.
And what's the real-world functional impact of that transparency on the traditional real estate industry?
It drastically streamlines the due diligence process, and it reduces costs. Just think about a traditional commercial real estate closing.
The layers of lawyers and agents.
Layers of title insurance companies, escrow agents, legal reviews, all just to verify the chain of ownership and make sure there are no existing liens or claims on the property.
It's a process that can take weeks and cost tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. Now, if the asset's entire ownership history and any encumbrances are transparently recorded and immutably verified on a distributed ledger, a huge amount of that manual, legal, and financial verification work just disappears.
That reduction in friction and cost could really accelerate capital deployment into real estate globally. It removes a major tax on just doing business.
It really could.
But despite all these revolutionary benefits, this market is still very young for a reason. There are substantial systemic roadblocks that have to be cleared for fractional ownership to truly hit the mainstream.
Oh, absolutely.
And the first and most critical is the great legal unknown, the regulatory puzzle.
This is the massive, critical question hanging over every single project all over the world. Are these real estate token securities? The answer to that question dictates everything about how they must be issued, traded, and managed.
Okay, so let's define what that means, at least in the US context, since that's where a lot of this regulatory debate is happening. The standard definition of a security, especially for an investment contract, is determined by the Howey test.
Correct. And the Howey test criteria are, they're straightforward, but they're incredibly powerful. First, is there an investment of money?
Check.
Second, is that investment in a common enterprise?
Check. A group of people owning a building.
Third, is there an expectation of profit?
Definitely check. You expect rent or appreciation.
And fourth, and this is crucial, is that profit derived from the entrepreneurial or managerial efforts of others?
Check again. That profit comes from a property manager or an institutional fund that you hired or that came with the asset. You're not managing it yourself.
So fractional real estate tokens almost invariably satisfy all the criteria of the Howey test. This means they are deemed securities and must comply with the rigorous, expensive, and often cumbersome regulatory frameworks set up by bodies like the SEC.
And that compliance dictates everything. Who can issue them, what disclosures have to be made, who can even buy them, often limiting sales to accredited investors at first, and how they can be traded. That uncertainty, the fact that the regulatory environment is still evolving all over the world, is a massive inhibitor.
It is. Until there is clear, standardized legal certainty, maybe a new classification created just for tokenized RWA's major traditional financial institutions, the ones who control trillions in capital, they're going to remain hesitant.
The risk is just too high.
The risk of future enforcement actions or retroactive changes in compliance rules is just too high. And this isn't just a US problem. Every major jurisdiction from the EU to Singapore is grappling with how to fit this digital square peg into a traditional analog securities round hole.
That complexity leads us to the next challenge, which is about connecting the digital to the physical, the custody and legal linkage problem. The token is digital, but the skyscraper is very, very physical. So who actually holds the deed?
Well, we mentioned the special purpose vehicle, the SPV. In pretty much all cases, the physical deed to the skyscraper is held by a newly created single asset legal entity, the FDV. The token holders then own proportional equity, this SPV, or they hold rights that are contractually granted by it.
Okay, so the token is not a direct claim on the actual bricks and mortar. It's a claim on the legal entity that owns the bricks and mortar.
Exactly. And the core challenge of custody is maintaining that trust and that legal linkage. I mean, what happens if the entity that issues the tokens or manages the SPV goes bankrupt? What is the actual legal recourse for a token holder who's based in a different country and only owns $500 worth of tokens?
That's where the whole system could fall apart. If the SPV, the legal shell, is compromised, the token, which is just a representation, could become worthless, even if the skyscraper itself is still standing there and is still valuable.
This is why the legal engineering has to be so robust. The SPV often has to be structured as what's called a bankruptcy remote entity,
Designed to isolate the asset.
to isolate the asset from the financial troubles of the token issuer. And furthermore, the legal documents have to clearly state that the token represents direct beneficial ownership rights in the SPV and, by extension, in the underlying asset and its cash flows. And that has to be enforceable in the right jurisdiction. Without that watertight linkage across borders, the whole proposition is just too risky for serious capital.
And the third major challenge, it relates to the very nature of this democratic ownership. The governance challenge, or, decision-making by the crowd.
This is a complex logistical reality. If a single skyscraper is owned by tens of thousands of people, how do you make efficient, timely management decisions?
Right. I mean, traditional commercial property is owned by a few experienced professionals for a reason. Decision-making is consolidated and it's swift.
But if every token holder has a proportional vote, just imagine trying to get consensus on something as mundane as refinancing the mortgage or picking a new insurance provider.
Let's talk about some specific financially critical scenarios. Who votes on decisions about major renovations, like a multi-million-dollar roof replacement? If 5,000 token holders want the cheap option and 5,000 want the premium option, how do you resolve that without crippling delays?
Or who fires the underperforming property manager? And maybe most critically, how is the collective decision made about a lucrative collective sale of the entire property? If 51% want to sell, but 49% want to hold on for, say, tax reasons, does the whole deal just collapse?
Traditional methods use things like proxy voting or limited partnerships, but those tend to be centralized. Can decentralized systems really scale to manage a physical asset efficiently?
It requires new decentralized governance models. A lot of them are bearing concepts from what are called decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. These models use weighted voting.
Where your vote is proportional to how many tokens you hold.
Right, and sometimes they rely on delegated voting, which is similar to a delegated proof-of-stake system you might see in other blockchains.
So a token holder could delegate their voting power to a specialized professional asset management firm who then votes on their behalf, essentially re-centralizing the decision-making among experts.
That's a common solution to try and mitigate gridlock, but it introduces its own complexity and potential conflicts of interest. The system needs to be fast, it needs to be secure, and it needs to be legally binding across thousands of dispersed fractional owners. If the asset requires an instant decision, say responding to a sudden market shift or an unexpected environmental hazard slow, complicated token holder voting could be catastrophic.
So the industry has to solve that speed versus consensus problem, but without sacrificing the democratic principles that make it attractive in the first place.
A very tricky balance.
So looking past these challenges, we have to acknowledge that this is an incredibly active market. We are talking about current momentum and global adoption happening right now, today.
Absolutely. The technical capability and the market demand are already proven. Despite that regulatory patchwork we talked about, tokenized real estate projects are successfully launching and trading assets all over the world. We're seeing projects tokenizing high-value apartment complexes in the Middle East, commercial office spaces in Switzerland, even vineyards in France.
So this demonstrates that the core idea actually works. The fractional ownership, the programmable cash flow, the distributed ledger verification. It's happening.
It's happening. And the appetite from retail investors for this kind of democratized access to these assets is massive. It proves the market exists beyond just theoretical white papers.
And this activity hasn't gone unnoticed by the heavyweights. We're seeing major institutional engagement. The big players, global asset managers, large development funds, private equity houses, they are all actively exploring tokenization as a strategic tool.
They are.
So what's their main motive? We know they have the capital to buy the whole building themselves, so why would they want to fractionalize it?
Well, their motive is really twofold. First, as you suggested, it's a new channel to attract vast new pools of capital. They can onboard hundreds of thousands of new retail investors from around the globe who were previously shut out.
And the second motive?
The second motive, which is far more critical for their own balance sheets, is that tokenization allows them to unlock the massive illiquidity that's tied up in their traditional holdings.
Oh, okay.
Think about a private equity real estate fund that has a 10-year lockup period. If they need to raise capital quickly, their only option is to sell an entire asset portfolio through a long traditional process. Tokenizing those assets allows them to sell off small fractions instantly, on demand.
So they gain unprecedented capital flexibility and speed. It reduces their holding period risk.
Exactly. It essentially turns a frozen asset on their balance sheet into a tradable, instantly monetizable financial instrument. This changes the entire risk management profile for these institutional players.
It accelerates the whole investment cycle. Where a fund might traditionally have to wait 12 months for a full exit, now they can incrementally distribute ownership to a wide, tokenized investor base over a much shorter period,
maximizing returns and minimizing their market exposure time.
This momentum, it leads directly to the source's definitive prediction for the coming years. And it's a powerful statement. The source suggests that fractional ownership could become a mainstream way to invest in real estate within the next decade.
A decade is incredibly aggressive for such a structural change in a conservative, historically slow-moving sector like real estate.
It is. So for that prediction to actually come true, what has to happen?
The key is regulatory clarity. We need major jurisdictions to adopt standardized, harmonized rules for asset tokenization, specifically around the definition of these security tokens and how they can be issued across borders.
But if, and it's a big if, but if that regulatory clarity arrives, the cost efficiencies, the liquidity improvements, and the access that tokenization provides, it all suggests an inevitable evolution.
I think so. High-value assets will no longer be the exclusive province of the elite. They'll be widely accessible and easily tradable. The plumbing is being built right now, the legal structures are being engineered, and crucially, the institutional giants are getting on board.
So this suggests that the digitization and distribution of property ownership aren't just a possibility.
They're a profound certainty on the horizon, one that could fundamentally change global financial norms.
That brings us to the end of our deep dive into tokenized fractional ownership. The synthesis here is powerful. We're watching a revolutionary technology enable micro-investments in real estate, providing the, previously unimaginable benefit of 247 liquidity and drastically increasing transparency through immutable blockchain records.
It's truly a revolution that's defined by access. It ensures that fractional ownership allows the everyday learner, the everyday investor, to secure a slice of assets that were once financially unreachable.
The skyscrapers, the infrastructure funds, the prime commercial properties of the world.
Exactly.
This gives you the power to diversify your portfolio globally, acquire institutional-grade assets, and unlock the efficiency of programmable cash flow, all while mitigating the high costs and the time delays that are just inherent in traditional property transfer.
Now, we'll leave you with a final provocative thought to consider long after this deep dive is over. We've focused heavily and necessarily on commercial properties, skyscrapers, malls, industrial parks.
Because that's where the initial institutional capital is and where the greatest illiquidity challenges exist.
Right. But what if this fractional ownership model extends beyond just those commercial properties and begins to encompass every form of property globally? Just consider the full implications of that kind of radical decentralization of wealth ownership. If residential homes, public infrastructure like toll roads, or even private farmland can be tokenized and fractured into affordable, tradable units, how profoundly will that reshape traditional investment habits?
And the very concept of property ownership in the coming years.
Would you invest in a tokenized skyscraper across the world? Or would you consider tokenizing the property you currently live in, using fractional ownership to unlock instant capital without selling your entire home? Just think about the possibilities of that truly decentralized financial world.
1, 2, 3, 4. Tokenized.